Hey guys, what's going on? Steven back again, and I'm back with another 40K video from Warhammer. And the topic for today's video is we need to talk about the Tyranid problem. Well, once this video is over, there's not going to be a Tyranid problem because I'm going to go hell dive, free some planets, spread some democracy with overwhelming firepower and lots of napalm. Oh yeah. But yeah, Tyranids, very cool. They got a lot of really cool looking models, not gonna lie. Some of their models are pretty badass looking. And their lore is very interesting too. You know, just the way they arrived from, what, deep space, coming in from all sides and stuff like that. That is, you know, that's one hell of a way to make an entrance and stuff like that, you know? And then of course we got the hive mind, which is something else, you know. It was ranked number one in, which video was it? I did a what was it, like top 10 most powerful entities or something like that. I don't remember which video it was, but yeah, the hive mind was ranked number one just because, well, nobody like really knows what it is, you know, which is very mysterious. Now, before we get into the video, here's a question for you guys. Do you like the way the Tyranids are now, where, you know, they're bugs, they just want to eat shit and that's it? Or do you think it'd be more interesting, give the Tyranids maybe a little bit more depth if they had like a character kind of like the Mouth of Sauron, or like a Sarah Kerrigan style character, you know, that kind of speaks for the hive mind, if you will, you know? So just imagine like this creature, I don't know, all Tyranid, or maybe half human, half Tyranid creature or something like that. You know, kind of looks like the Mouth of Sauron, you know, on the battlefield, you know, your planet is doomed, you know, and the hive mind is just relaying this message to it, and it is speaking this message, you know, this planet is doomed, you cannot stop us, we are endless, you know, just speaking for the hive mind. Would you like something like that? Because, I mean, as cool as the Tyranids are, they, you know, yeah, they got like some named characters and stuff, but like nothing like really, I don't know, it's just kind of like hard to like, well, back when I used to play, I should say, you know, and I would play my Space Marines and stuff like that, you know, I'd use Grandmaster so-and-so, you know, and that character had lore and stuff like that, you know, so it kind of feels like, all right, I got this guy up, you know, leading my army, taking on whoever I was facing and stuff like that. So it's like, all right, kind of feel like there's, you know, I got a connection, you know, to this character, you know, Grandmaster so-and-so is leading my army against whoever I was playing, you know, so it's like I want him, you know, to survive. But with Tyranids, there's like no, I mean, like I said, they got like some named characters, but like nothing like, I don't know, like you can't really like connect with them. It's like, yeah, I got like a hive tyrant leading my army. Oh, he's dead? Oh well, another one's gonna spawn out, so it's just like whatever. You know, it just feels like there's no connection, you know, to them because they don't have like characters. Yeah, there's like old One Eye and stuff like that, but it's just like, you know. But if you had like, I don't know, maybe like a Sarah Kerrigan or something, you know, Mouth of Sauron, maybe it'd be like there's more connection to them. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, because maybe that's just the way, you know, I used to play. But yeah, let me know. Let me know what you guys think. All right. So, anyways, let's get on to the video. Here we go.
Warhammer 40K has a massive problem, one in which nothing but a generous helping of plot armor has any hope of actually fixing. I'm of course talking about the Tyranid problem. Now on one hand, you have this ridiculously overpowered faction, one that can basically do anything and outnumbers humanity some 10,000 to 1. Yet time and time again, they fail to make any kind of actual impact on the setting. We've got a faction that on paper is so god tier that they're likely to destroy the entire galaxy in less than 1,000 years. Yet, every single time they get even remotely close to eating a world that anybody actually cares about, they get miraculously defeated. The plot having to resort to Deus Ex literal corn demons at one point in order to push them back.
Oh, so I heard about that.
What exactly is going on here? What is the deal with the Tyranids? Are they actually too overpowered for Warhammer 40K, and is Games Workshop having to do some narrative course correction? Or are they nowhere near as powerful as a large portion of the community seems to think, and their defeat is nothing out of the ordinary? If they are as powerful as the makers of Warhammer 40K keep telling us they are, then why aren't we seeing any more meaningful Tyranid victories? We're going to dive into all that and a whole lot more in this video.
That's a fair point.
There's a lot to talk about when it comes to the Tyranid problem. But first, a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, Dungeon Hunter 6. Dungeon Hunter 6 is the latest entry in the
like I said, he does make a good point there.
I remember when this series
if
first
they
kicked off
are
in 2009.
as powerful, as they are, they should be making, a huge impact, but,
by its stunning fantasy-inspired art style,
when it comes to taking over a planet, it's like, plot armor. This planet's got plot armor, so,
and some truly
I don't know.
over-the-top bosses.
That is
the
very...
game is absolutely free to play, and you can download it now by clicking on the
very
link in the
interesting.
description of this video, or if you're on PC, by scanning my QR code on the screen. My favorite part about the game is that even though you feel a huge sense of triumph after conquering one of the game's many bosses, that's not the end. Not only do you get their loot, but you can use them as mounts, summon them onto the battlefield as part of your squad, and even shapeshift into them to harness their crazy levels of power in the end game. It's a super unique mechanic that I've never seen anyone else do before, and there's over 100 uniquely designed bosses to conquer, as well as new classes and units being updated monthly, so the fun never ends. Download the game for free today on both Android and iOS by clicking on the link in the description of this video, or scanning my QR code on the screen for my PC viewers. When you do, you'll get a special starter pack worth $50. That includes 10 summoning scrolls, 1 SSR Lieutenant, the Demonic Wolf, and 1 accessory pack. And don't forget to use your game account to enter the Launch Lucky Spin event for free to win some great prizes like a iPhone 15 Pro Max, a PS5, or even an Apple Watch. The event starts October 15th. Check out the description in this video for all the details. Big thanks to Dungeon Hunter 6 for sponsoring this video. When somebody first gets into Warhammer, the first thing they notice is just how ridiculously overpowered all of the factions seemingly are. But if it's a franchise that you end up liking and you stick with it, you realize that they're all balanced out by a copious amount of weaknesses that keep them in line with the rest of the story. But considering that the Tyranids really don't seem to have any major glaring weaknesses compared to all of the other factions, it's no wonder that we see hot takes all the time from people saying that
Black Library has written themselves into a corner when it comes to Tyranids. In my opinion, Black Library has made the Tyranids way too OP, with the give mind being able to overpower pretty much anything. Tyranids have a near-perfect biology and massive Tyranid fleet heading to the galaxy in 100 years. Black Library authors are going to have to come up with a MacGuffin explanation as to how the Tyranids just won't win, unless that's their plan, which I doubt. Edit GW mostly, not Black Library. Yeah, that's kind of interesting, because I was talking to someone else about it. It just seems kind of... That's kind of like the thing with, like, when it comes to, like, the writing, kind of like a hot potato type of thing. Like, all right, I'm going to write this book here about, this here, but then another writer, continues on my story and stuff like that, and then he puts his own twist on it. Star Wars, the latest trilogy, what J.J. Abrams did, like, the first one, and then what's his name did the second one, and then J.J. kind of did, like, the third one and stuff like that, and it was like, all right, this is okay, wow, this is crap, and this is even worse and stuff like that. No, what's the word, cohesion, if you will, I guess. It's just kind of playing hot potato, if you will.
Games Workshop has written themselves into a corner with them, that they made them too powerful for this setting, and the only thing that will prevent a complete Tyranid victory is the dreaded plot armor. On paper, we can certainly see where these people are coming from. The Tyranids really do seem to have everything going for them. They fight as an infinite swarm, seemingly outnumbering humanity some 10,000 to 1. They can harvest the DNA from other creatures to create the ultimate bioforms, adapting and evolving in radically different directions, seemingly on the fly to counter whatever the enemy could possibly throw at them. They are united entirely under the will of the hive mind, one central godlike intelligence, thus they are all on the same page at all times.
Right.
And considering the fact that they come from outside of our galaxy, many people believe that the Tyranids we've seen so far are only the scouts, the tiniest portion of the entirety of the Tyranid species. When they invade a
Just the scouts. That'd be... Unless... How do I want to word it? So... Yeah, see, I'm kind of lost on how do I want to word what I'm trying to say. So if what we currently have now is just scouts, is that like the way the army is scheduled, set now? You got your gaunts and stuff like that, which are the lower class warriors. Then you got the warriors and hive tyrants and swarm lords and stuff like that. Is that like the pecking order of of the army, and they just sent in like a small amount of them? Or is there like the main army still out there? Like, yeah, a swarm lord is the boss or HQ or whatever you want to call it, but when the real army comes in, there is something above, I know there's like the swarm lord and stuff like that, but something above that actually really leads the army. The Tyranid warriors that we have now, yeah, those are just like what gaunts are currently. Those are just like little foot troops. The real warriors haven't arrived yet. Is that, kind of what like he's saying? Or is it they just sent in a small force, but the rest of the army is still out there? You get what I'm kind of saying?
World, they don't only kill every single person on it, but harvest every scrap of organic matter, including all of their own dead, render it down into biomass, and then use that to make even more Tyranids. So
and make them
whenever
stronger.
They win, they don't actually lose any of their units, but will often walk away from the fight, potentially doubling or even tripling their numbers. Whereas everybody else in this universe has to lick their wounds and rebuild the old-fashioned way. It sounds pretty ridiculous, right? Like they should be destroying major planets and absolutely tearing the Imperium apart.
Right.
But that doesn't seem to be the case. In fact, it's far more common in the stories to see the Tyranids get absolutely stomped, rather than win any meaningful victories. So what the hell is actually going on? If the Tyranids are so ungodly broken, why haven't they absolutely crushed the Imperium and rendered everyone down into bug food yet? Part 1. Can the Tyranids actually be beaten?
Oh, I'm sure they
Let's
can.
get this out of the way before diving into the meat and potatoes of this video. Are the Tyranids as a faction too OP for Warhammer 40K? No, they absolutely are not. It's been proven time and time again that they are not invincible, they can be defeated, and it's to the point where we honestly see them get their ass handed to them more often than not. The one factor that they have that does make them a little bit OP though, is that since we don't have any confirmation on just how many Tyranids are actually out there, and how many more of them are lurking beyond the boundaries of our galaxy, they exist more like a force of nature than a faction. I'm just gonna say it right now, the Tyranids are here to stay. They're just something that the Milky Way galaxy will have to deal with for the rest of time. This is not something that is unique to them, however, as the Orcs are also a faction that reproduces so quickly that you can never truly get rid of them. And if we want to pull in a little Games Workshop magic, even a faction like the Necrons, of which there are far fewer of, could potentially have hundreds of billions of unactive tomb worlds waiting to come online.
Other galaxies is
considering that they supposedly had spread to every corner of the galaxy during the War in Heaven. In battle, the Tyranids have weaknesses just like everybody else that can be exploited. Since they're all controlled by the hive mind, the Tyranids have unity unlike any other faction. But the hive mind doesn't have any naysayers to question its decisions, and time again, it has been shown to make rash choices, if perhaps due to an overconfidence in its own superiority, that have come back to bite it. There was a scene in the Devastation of Baal where the Blood Angels created a moat of thirst water, a liquid comprised of microorganisms that suck all of the water out of anything that they touch. The Tyranid swarm ended up throwing itself into the water in great numbers, all of them dying instantaneously. Now, whether it thought it could survive or that it would just fill the moat with so many bodies that it would eventually make a bridge of bone and chitin is unknown, but ultimately it didn't work out for it. Additionally, since the entirety of the Tyranid network is controlled by synapse creatures, if this synaptic network is ever compromised, then the Tyranids revert back into feral beasts. Creatures that are certainly still dangerous, but they're no longer an organized threat, and no match for the highly disciplined military forces of the Imperium. There's also the issue of the Norn Queens, which act like a super synapse creature that controls an entire hive fleet. The queens are so critically important to the fleet that they have to dedicate a large portion of their biomass to keeping her protected in orbit, generating multiple hive ships that stay behind and don't participate in the fighting, because if she ends up getting killed, her death scream will cause all of the Tyranids in the area to start evolving in thousands of different directions at once, leading to a pretty gruesome and spectacular death. There's also the limitations of biomass. Now, even though the Tyranids have access to seemingly infinite different varieties of bioforms, organic war gear, and bioadaptations of all shapes and sizes, each and every one of these things requires biomass, and hive fleets don't have an unlimited supply of the stuff. The hive mind has to pick and choose exactly what combinations of adaptations it's going to send with its troops into battle. It can't just give them all of them. I'm making up numbers here, but it has to decide if it wants to deploy 20 Carnifexes or 1,000 Gaunts, because they require the same amount of biomass. Which one of these things is going to be more effective against this particular enemy in this particular situation? Does it give its units acid maws or feeder tendrils? Are they going to be fighting in an environment where they could utilize camouflage, or is it a waste of biomass? How much armor is the enemy using? Do they need to spend the extra biomass on crushing claws? Is the enemy heavily fortified? Do they need to bring a bunch of burrowing units, or could that biomass better be spent elsewhere?
That's pretty impressive.
The Tyranids may have an answer for everything, but they can't utilize everything at their disposal in every single engagement. And sometimes they get it wrong. They can quickly adapt to whatever situation they find themselves in, and send in a new wave of Tyranid organisms with different adaptations better suited for this particular engagement. But if the enemy is able to change tactics just as quickly, the second wave is likely to be defeated as well. Each time a new wave is sent in and defeated, more and more biomass is lost, until eventually the hive mind has to cut its losses and retreat. There was actually a pretty perfect example of this happening when the Tau fought against Hive Fleet Gorgon, and it became a glorified arms race. The Tau's ability to churn out new tech and fighting tactics versus Gorgon's accelerated evolution. At first, the Tau utilized the dense forests of their world to their advantage by filling them with Kroot-based guerrilla-style combat units that slowed down the Tyranids' movement. The Tyranids responded by evolving to be better suited to move through the forest undeterred. So the Tau switched from using Kroot to fire warriors with pulse rifles, to just obliterate them outright. Once again, the Tyranids evolved to be almost completely immune to the energy created by the pulse rifles, developing carapaces that dissipated the energy of the blast. After this, the Tau would end up retreating to the mountains, and sent in stealth teams to gather up all of the fallen Kroot's weapons. They gave them to all of the fire warriors, and they were once again proving effective against the Tyranids. The Tyranids responded to this by sending out a whole bunch of bioforms that had chameleonic abilities and were able to blend into their surroundings, thus making the fire warriors no longer effective. Here's the thing, the advanced enemy detection systems of all of the Tau's battlesuits were able to see their heat signatures no problem, so they just switched to using nothing but crisis suits. The major takeaway here was that since Hive Fleet Gorgon was having to adapt so quickly, it was relying almost entirely on its smaller bioforms. It was never able to deploy any of its big units, and because of this, with a few good old-fashioned suicidal assaults, the Tau were able to go on the aggressive and strike at the heart of the fleet. This is a great example of the Tyranids' limitations. If you can match them tit for tat when it comes to them trying to evolve to counter you, you've got a pretty good chance of coming out victorious. Now, it's easier said than done,
then just keep switching tactics over and over and over again.
Battle, but the Tau did manage to pull it off in the end. Other factions create some pretty significant problems for the Tyranids as well. Now, although the lore is still unclear on whether or not they can absorb the necrodermis of the Necrons, it's likely that even if they can, they probably don't get much out of it, as they're specialized in absorbing organic matter. Compounding on this even further, the weaponry that the Necrons tend to utilize destroys matter at a molecular level, meaning that the bugs can't even recoup their losses by cannibalizing their own dead. So at the end of the day, from the bugs' perspective, any engagement against the Necrons is ultimately a losing situation, even if they actually win the battle. And when it comes to other factions like Chaos, they can't consume the flesh of demons at all, so it's pretty much the same situation.
Now, it's true that the orcs produce an absolute
Demonic
metric
nids.
ton of biomass for the Tyranids, but they reproduce just as quickly, so engagements with them lead to never-ending wars. And factions like the Eldar are notoriously difficult for their gene-stealer cults to infiltrate. And the forces of the Imperium? They got a shitload of guns. And sometimes the best strategy to fighting the Tyranids is to just
Overwhelming
have enough ammo
firepower.
to handle wave after wave of bug monsters. Part 2. The Tyranid Problem. Now, even though I just spent the last section of this video describing multiple different ways that the Tyranids can and have been defeated, this is all a lot easier said than done. They're considered the galaxy's apex predator for a reason, and on paper, their small handful of weaknesses pales in comparison to the mountain of strengths that they have. They are by far one of, if not the singular, most powerful factions in all of Warhammer 40K. But you wouldn't know this if you were keeping track of their wins and losses. Sure, we see them destroy a bunch of random worlds that no one has ever heard of in the fluff section of their codex.
Right, they gotta get some
when it comes
wins.
to actual meaningful victories, they seem to
Probably
be
none.
non-existent.
Yeah.
Why is this the case? Why do the authors of Black Library and the corporate overlords of Games Workshop seem to be completely averse to Tyranid victory? There seems to be a huge disconnect in Warhammer's lore between sources like the codexes, campaign books, and background books, and what we're told about in the novels. On one hand, we are told that the Tyranids are this existential threat, one of the most powerful forces mankind has ever encountered,
But they're
and
just
they're
not
eating worlds
doing
left and right. But then when
anything
it comes to the
effective.
novels, if the Tyranids get even the tiniest bit close to taking a planet that anybody actually gives a shit about, Games Workshop's plot armor kicks in, and the bugs get absolutely stomped. After which, we as the audience are fed this piece of fluff that says that even though the Tyranids didn't ultimately destroy the world, it was a Pyrrhic victory for the Imperium at best. Like, for example, the one from Devastation of Baal, where the Tyranids made it all the way to the Blood Angels' homeworld and eventually were pushed back.
Yep.
Even though they were defeated, we were told that, oh, but things are so
It was
bad
a
for the Blood
close
Angels.
battle.
They suffered uncountable losses and things will never be the same. Except that that's a lie. Everything about that is exactly a lie. Nothing changed. Absolutely nothing changed. You could skip that book in its entirety, and you wouldn't even notice that there had been a major invasion of Baal. This is due to a fundamental problem with how Warhammer's story is presented by Games Workshop. Even though this is a setting where mankind controls 1,000,000 worlds, only a couple of dozen of them have any real importance to the story. So a list of destroyed worlds that no one has ever heard of in the timeline section of the
Doesn't really
Tyranid
matter.
Codex
No one
doesn't
cares.
resonate with the audience.
Right.
It is perceived only
I didn't
as
even
an
know there was a
illusion
planet.
of stakes. It's basically just
it's
an
not anymore, so
exposition
don't worry
dump,
about it.
Something that tells us that they are a threat without showing us through impactful writing.
Can't wait for this
that
game.
makes the universe feel alive and dangerous. You can actually see a great visual example of this by looking at the new trailer for Warhammer 40K 10th edition.
Yeah.
Awesome trailer, loved every second about
Yeah.
it. But this last shot genuinely made me crack up. You see Gilliman standing over his console, looking at all these worlds blip out, indicating that they've been consumed by the Tyranids. And even though the whole narrative he's giving is about victory, you see the grim dark reality of just how bad things really are, how many worlds the Tyranids have consumed. This 1 5-second little clip indicating to us as the viewer, oh gosh, things really are bad, aren't they?
Right,
Yeah,
look at all
none of
those
those
little
worlds
red
actually
blips.
mean anything. None of them have any significance in the story at all. It's
Right.
just another made-up exposition dump. And there's probably a good reason why it doesn't show any of their names on that console, because Gilliman can't name them. And you want to know why? Because those planets
care.
don't exist. They don't exist. However, I
Doesn't
understand
care.
why Games Workshop handles the bugs like this. And that's because Tyranid victory, I hate to admit it, but it's not very satisfying to read about, at least in the form of a novel. It only really works in that textbook style format that's delivered through the codexes or the background books. And since Games Workshop has limited themselves to only a handful of planets having any kind of real importance in the setting, they can't let a faction like the Tyranids that has no character or relatable heroes of its own take one of them out. At this point, I've read about 150 of the Warhammer novels, and if you're like me and you consume them at a frankly irresponsible level, then you've probably noticed a pattern with a lot of them, especially any of the books that involve chaos and the Imperium. Although you could objectively call one side over the other the main characters of a given book, they tend to jump back and forth between both factions,
Right.
really building up the characters on both sides, thoroughly explaining their wants and motivations. This
Makes sense.
humanizes both sides, and it's the best part about reading a war novel.
Yeah.
It builds the immersion and makes deaths on both
So you
sides
can get
feel
perspective from
meaningful
both
and
sides.
impactful. You get sucked into the grim dark scenario, and no matter the outcome, the reader is ultimately left satisfied by the conclusion. You just can't do this with the Tyranids. They don't
Right.
have any character. They don't have any personality other than hunger. This is why.
And that's why I said, would it be would it be good if they had like a character like the Mouth of Sauron or a Sarah Kerrigan to give them that other side, if you will?
In a novel like Devastation of Baal, the author has to create conflict and drama by having a whole bunch of different factions of Blood Angels who are all technically on the same side, not see eye to eye with each other and end up squabbling through most of the book.
Which
I know I'm
seems
picking on this book
kind
a
of
lot
pointless
in this video,
and dumb.
but
Like,
I did actually kind of enjoy it.
why are we fighting? We got
shit from the audience
this
than
to
it
deal
rightfully
with, you know?
deserves. I think the lictor scenes in particular were some of the most creative bits of Warhammer writing I've read in a really long time. But let's not mix words. Those lictor scenes were as close as you could possibly get to giving the Tyranids any type of personality. And then even still, we're basically just following an animal. In a novel like this, where the characterization is completely one-sided, you just can't have the Tyranids win. It wouldn't be satisfying to the majority of the audience. Now, full disclosure, I personally would thoroughly enjoy a book like that. Give me a book from the Tyranids' perspective, written in the style of Raptor Red, and I'll pre-order the special edition yesterday. But I think the larger Warhammer audience is not going to enjoy something weird and experimental like that. And I'm confident Games Workshop believes this as well.
never know.
I adore Warhammer's novels, but Games Workshop writes what is going to sell, only taking weird experimental chances every 20 books or so. Oh, what's that? You want the third Rise of the Ynnari book? Well, we need to release about 20 more Horus Heresy books and about 10 more modern Space Marine novels and give or take 5 or 6 Guard books. And then we'll talk. But even then, no promises. Because Games Workshop has restricted the majority of the setting to only a couple of dozen planets, one of them being destroyed is a massive decision that is not left up to any given author. It has to be done at the corporate level. Games Workshop can allow a world like Armageddon to be taken by the Orcs, only for it to later be taken back by the Imperium, and then the Orcs get all pissed and come back again to take it once more. We can have a planet
do something like that
constantly, and it makes for interesting developments in the overall plot. Warhammer is a fantasy story in space, and in fantasy settings, factions take and lose territory all the time. It's what makes their worlds feel so alive. The problem with the Tyranids is that since they have a scorched earth policy, victory for them means the complete destruction of an entire world. From Games Workshop's perspective, to let the Tyranids win means to cut off thousands of potential storylines stemming from that single planet. And they're not interested in doing that. I should point out that shortly before making this video, the Tyranids did achieve victory at Aughrim. If you don't know about it, the Battle for Aughrim was an event held on Games Workshop's website in mid-2023. Where players could submit their results by playing as either the Space Marines or the Tyranids in
I heard about that.
with the overall victories being calculated at the end to determine the winner. The Tyranids ended up coming out ahead, and thus Aughrim was destroyed. This was awesome. I love these types of events.
And then the Space Marines ended up getting the reinforcements.
Terror style campaigns like this,
or got some new models and stuff like that.
Let's not get it twisted. This planet did not exist before this event. The earliest mention of it was from a Warhammer community post announcing the campaign. And who could have asked for a more perfect analogy of what it's like to be a fan of the Tyranids? You get this massive hyped up event that gets the entire community involved, where they finally do it. They finally let the Tyranids win. But it's just a made-up planet that no one's ever heard of and doesn't have any lore and doesn't impact the status quo at all. A far cry from the meaningful victory Tyranid fans have been asking for years. What I think is important to bear in mind about 40K and more importantly Games Workshop is that they're a company that doesn't like change. They're notoriously overprotective of the 40K IP and are not traditionally interested in taking risks. It's why, as much as I love the tabletop game, we're playing with a lot of aggressively outdated rules by modern tabletop standards. It's why the status quo of the universe very seldomly changes. You have to remember that this is a company that let the battle for Cadia stand still for almost 2 decades. It's also the company that had to recall the first 2 books in the Dark Imperium trilogy in order to change its dates from happening 112 years in the future, well after the Indomitus Crusade had concluded, to being 12 years into the future while the Crusade was still underway. It was too much of a leap forward for them and changed the status quo just too much. Now, the only major character death that we've seen recently has been Yarick. And don't get me wrong, I was sad when Yarick died, but that dude was ancient, and it was well overdue. And Games Workshop treated it like this old man dying was this pivotal event, patting themselves on the back for embracing something new. Needless to say, I don't think Games Workshop is going to change its policy on making sure nothing changes anytime soon. And as a consequence, we're probably never going to get a truly meaningful Tyranid victory. So after all that, do I think
kind
that
of a
Games
shame.
Workshop wrote themselves into a corner by making the Tyranids too powerful? Surprisingly,
Probably.
no. I don't think they're too OP for the setting. But I do think that GW's aversion to taking risks in the form of letting the Tyranids earn a handful of meaningful victories that actually impacts the overall setting is crippling their storytelling potential for them. The
Right,
Tyranids
yeah.
are ridiculously interesting. There's a lot of really cool stuff that they could do with them. But if they're not willing to ever let them win in a significant way, the audience ends up not taking them seriously. You can't just tell us that they're a massive threat without showing us.
Yeah.
Now, I'm no author, but I feel like that's creative writing 101.
Look,
If Games
big,
Workshop wants to
spooky
continue
creatures,
on their path of making
they're a
sure
huge
the Space
threat.
Marines take up 90% of all written lore,
Sorta.
and that the setting is restricted to only a couple of dozen planets, the only way that's going to happen is by letting the Tyranids blow up one of their homeworlds. The thing I personally find so frustrating about how Games Workshop handles the Tyranids is the inconsistencies in how they are written. We are told that they are the inevitable death of the Milky Way. It doesn't matter how many of them you kill, there will always
More
be
and more will
Tyranids.
keep coming.
Maybe the Imperium will hold out for another 1,000 years, maybe even 10,000 years, but they will take loss after loss after loss, growing weaker and more tired each and every day, all while the tide of Tyranids never ceases,
Right.
until one day, the foundations break apart, and in one gory final showdown, the Tyranids destroy everything. It plays into the long game of 40K that we're witnessing the death of humanity, that we're witnessing the tales of those times, 1 second to midnight, where humanity thrashes against the dying of the light. It's an inevitability, but a fundamental pillar of what 40K is all about. On paper, this is pretty cool. But
Right,
it's
it does sound
unsatisfying to
cool.
the people who enjoy the Tyranids and just want to see them do something interesting. Oh, what's that? You want to see your faction actually do something? Actually accomplish something? And demonstrate that they have some kind of agency in this franchise? That they actually have an impact on the setting?
they pose a threat.
Take solace in the fact that you're going to win off screen long after the entire franchise has completely burnt
Yeah,
out.
you guys
Enjoy
won this
another
planet
6
we just made
novels
about
where your
10 minutes ago.
quote-unquote
Congratulations.
ultimate life form, the Swarm Lord,
There was
gets
nothing
his
on the planet
cheeks clapped
anyways,
by
but,
the
you know,
random
you
Space
won it.
Marine of the week. That shit sucks.
Here's your at least
And
you
Games
tried
Workshop,
medal.
If you're listening, I know how to fix everything. Just let the Tyranids eat Calth. Everything will be fine. The status quo will be fine. The Tyranids will get a meaningful victory. The Ultramarines have 499 other worlds. Everything will be just fine. Just give the Tyranid fans something.
Sad
But
bug
what do you
noises.
think of all this? Do you think the Tyranids are too overpowered? Do you think that Games Workshop is justified in plot armoring them into irrelevancy? Do you think that not every single victory has to be this big galaxy-defining moment that shakes up the status quo, and that the smaller victories are totally okay? Do you like the way Games Workshop has handled the Tyranids, or do you want something more from them? This video is a little bit different than the normal type of stuff I make. I normally stick to the lore, but in this one I kind of wanted to explore the more meta narrative of how Games Workshop kind of handles factions, and I might do this in the future more often. Anyways, that's all I,
I
had
hope
to
you
say on
do.
this particular topic. Big thanks
This
to
is pretty
everyone who
cool.
supports the work that I do, and I will catch you all in the next one.
Yeah, I hope you do more of these videos because it was actually very cool. Yeah, so there we go. There is the problem with the Tyranids. Yeah, very, very interesting. I wonder what you guys think about this. You know, did they kind of back themselves into a corner saying, you know, hey, this race here, they're a giant threat and stuff like that, you know? And no meaningful impact or anything like that, you know? Hey, look, you guys won this planet over here. You know, you see this little planet like way over here? Yeah, the name is such and such. Just, you know, made it up. You guys won that planet, you know. It was a small little village on that planet, you know. Here you go. At least you tried. There's your at least you tried medal. You know, you won something. You know, I don't know. I mean, yeah, Games Workshop doesn't like to take risks and stuff like that, which is kind of, you know, I kind of get it and kind of don't. You know, what if you do take a risk and it ends up sucking and it's not good and it flops and stuff like that? I get it, you know, but then if you just stay the way you are, it's just like nothing is happening, you know? I mean, I get, you know, there are like planets and stuff like that that are very important. You know, you can't really, you know, get rid of those and stuff like that because of how important they are and stuff. But You know, like, I don't even remember when they did, the destruction of Cadia. I'm sure when that actually happened, that was a huge, massive moment and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I don't know how much storytelling and stuff like that just completely changed once they completely destroyed Cadia and stuff like that. I don't remember, was that well received? Did people hate that? How did people react to, that moment happening? I wonder if it was something planned, like this is what we're gonna do, or is it, all right, we're gonna take a chance and hope for the best, and hey, look, Katie is destroyed. Did was it a good chance? Was it a bad chance? Yeah, I mean, I get it, but sometimes you got to take risks, because it just seems like Tyranids are wicked cool, huge threat, unlimited numbers. They can morph, they can change, they can adapt, they can overcome and stuff like that. But they don't do anything, Yeah, we'll take over like these little dinky planets that, no one's ever heard of, no one cares about, no one knows what's on them, and, oh, they've taken over like 10 planets and destroyed 10 planets. Oh, which planets? Those ones. Those ones over there. Oh. Who cares about those planets? Whatever. Didn't mean anything. But yeah, then talking about like the books and stuff like that, and, the Tyranids not having any personality because they don't have any characters to give a personality to, you know what I mean? Because when he was talking about that book and, like the Blood Angels and, their other chapters and stuff like that, squabbling amongst each other, it's like really? We're gonna squabble about this? Like, we got this shit to take care of right now. Like, I don't know, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, Games Workshop does take chances on their video games, though. They've done more flops than they have wins. I mean, granted, yes, they have taken a big chance, a big risk, letting their IP go into TV and movies. I mean, Henry's got that, so I'm pretty sure that's in very, very safe hands and stuff like that. I don't think Henry will let anything go too ridiculous and stuff like that, like it did with The Witcher and stuff like that. I think him being, what do they say, executive producer for everything? I think he's like executive producer for like whatever shows or movies they create, Henry has a hand in. So I think it's basically like, yes, we are giving our IP to Henry, not really you. It's more him. We trust him more than like we trust you, Amazon. But yeah, so there we go about the Tyranids. Let me know, what do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think the Tyranids are overpowered? Do you think they're fine the way they are? Do you hate that they're not, causing any threat or impact or, anything major? Like, I don't know, like it'd be cool to see like something happen. I don't know what, like I'd love to see like another threat to like Terra once again, where like, I don't know, all the Space Marine chapters have to be recalled to defend Terra and stuff like that. I mean, I know that'd be a huge, risk and stuff like that, but like seeing something like that actually happen, I mean, that'd be, pretty cool. Once, what, the last time Terra had a huge threat, what, Horus Heresy, and how long ago, in the story, in the lore, did that happen? I don't know, but let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think about the Tyranids? Would you like to see them do something more, cause more of an impact and stuff like that, or do you think just the way they're going now is fine? Let me know. So anyways, there we go. There is the video. Very interesting to learn about it. Hopefully he does more of these these type of videos. But leave me all your thoughts and comments, and other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. That'd be awesome. Remember, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media. Links in the description box below. Come join me over on Discord. There should be a link down below as well in the description box. And we can talk more 40K and stuff like that. Suggest videos for me to check out. Post pictures of whatever models you're building, painting, converting, stuff like that, because that'd be really cool to see what you guys are working on. And yeah, other than that, just stick around. More videos are on the way, and I will see you guys next time.